Hello, I'm David Lehman, and I welcome you to an evening of great pleasure, occasioned by an eternal instant of great pain, the death of our beloved colleague, teacher, poet, friend, Paul Violi. Paul died before his time, so much so that his absence still feels like a wound, especially in a room like this one, where we sat together many a time. On an evening featuring 30 or more speakers, no one wants a long introduction. I will keep to essentials. We are here to honor Paul and to celebrate his achievement. Each presenter, with one or two self-explanatory exceptions, will read one poem by Paul. We, Stephanie Padgett and I, asked our presenters to name the poem by Paul that they would most like to read. Such are the amplitude and the range of Paul's writing that nearly everyone got his or her first choice. Among our readers are the winner and the runners-up of the first annual Paul Violi Poetry Prize. Congratulations go to Alex Crowley, who won the prize, and to Lizzie McDaniel and Allie Power, who were also singled out by eminent judges unaffiliated with the New School. The winner of the award receives $500. Because of the generosity of donors, I am happy to say that the graduate writing program will be able to continue giving out the prize annually. In fact, we would like to keep it going in perpetuity, and if you should wish to make a contribution, please speak or write to me or consult the Best American Poetry blog for details. If you type in the words Paul Violi Poetry Prize, Google will get you where you want to go. I'm also happy to say that we have some books by Paul that are available for purchase at the table over here near the coats. And I'm not sure what variety, how many books there are, but yes, we definitely have in Baltic Circles. Thank you, Ann. Paul loved teaching at the New School. He taught at other institutions too, at Columbia and at NYU, for example. And at each of these places, he inspired the people lucky enough to take his classes or to share drinks or conversation with him. I always thought of Paul as, in a way, the Charles Bronson of poetry, the Bronson of the Magnificent Seven and The Great Escape. He was a man of integrity, stoicism, good humor, good looks, humility without false modesty, manliness without the need to make a gaudy display. His poetry is funny and serious and inventive. He wrote high-concept poems organized around improbable conceits in the metaphysical sense of that word. I keep seeing him in the street, but when he gets a little closer, I see that I saw only what I wanted to see. Well, he'll be in this room tonight, his own words conjuring up the letter and spirit of his presence. Great thanks to all of you who have come, to those who helped organize this event, and to all who are taking part. I ask you all, when it is your turn to read, to remind the audience of your name as well as the title of the work you'll be reading. Our reading is in two parts with a brief intermission. There are three slight changes in the program. Ron Padgett will read Paul's poem Written in a Time of Worry and Woe immediately after Amy Lawless delivers Excess. And Mark Statman will read an excerpt from King Nasty right after Star Black. And Donna Brook will not be able to join us tonight. Those are the three changes. And now, our first reader, the director of the New School Writing Program, Robert Polito.
So, thank you very much, David. I also want to welcome you tonight, and it's stirring and poignant how many of Paul's friends and students and fellow poets are here, so we can all together honor Paul and his work. Before I read one of Paul's poems, I want to speak briefly to Paul as a teacher and as an esteemed member of our literary community here. In one of his last emails to me, Paul wrote, quote, "I have to tell you how much I enjoyed teaching in your program. Simply walking in the door made me a happy man." That happy feeling, of course, could not have been more mutual and reciprocated. Over the years, Paul steadily evolved into our most beloved, sought-after, and popular teacher of poetry workshops and poetry literature seminars. Paul's poetry teaching was smartly, speculatively, and modestly rooted in his own poems. And from the outset, from Waterworks and in Baltic Circles from the early 1970s through Overnight in 2007, Paul proved an astonishing poet, various, daring, funny, yet with a tug of melancholy, sly, surprising, and capacious. Paul's poems possessed a dynamic internal architecture and casually carried a lot of history inside them. One element of his energetic design looping back to the conceptual wit of the British metaphysical poets like Marvell, Herbert, and Donne. Another element summoning and reinventing the vivid American, even hard-boiled vernaculars of Damon Runyon, Dashiell Hammett, and Mark Twain. Another element recasting the fluency, volatility, and forthrightness of the Coleridge conversation poems he loved and taught here. And still another element, maybe even more elusive but no less crucial, that absorbed into poetry the deadpan strategies of Duchamp, Rauschenberg, and Johns. These buoyant qualities, along with the generosity of spirit and vision that was manifest even in the most serendipitous exchanges with Paul, whether in the hallway or at Café Lou, all came together also to make him a singularly gifted teacher. At the New School, Paul taught both workshops and seminars, and so I thought I might read a bit from what his students wrote about him in their regular semester evaluations of his classes. Most of the student commentary sounds like this from a poetry workshop. Paul is an incredibly knowledgeable and encouraging instructor. I found him to be bang on with his comments, both on my work and others. He never hesitated to direct discussion when needed, and I thoroughly enjoyed this class. Or this from another workshop. P. Violi's input is priceless. His comments and knowledge are very valuable. He is right on point in his comments and suggestions. Some students were more specific, such as this one who recounted, quote, "Paul threatened to charge me $20 for every of abstraction I made. I stopped." Or another recalled, "Paul has strengthened my confidence in using parody and satire with a serious intent. He has given me encouragement to go all out and work hard. He has pointed out some of my most outrageous lines for praise, but also reminds me about what works in the context of the whole poem." Another student celebrated Paul this way. "This teacher inspired me to look at different approaches to my poetry, specifically making me grumpy enough that I wrote meaner poems, which I liked. I feel I've taken great strides with my poetry and prose this semester." And finally, a student, perhaps in homage to Paul's own formal subversions in his poems such as Index or Finish These Sentences or Counterman, giddily exploded the notion of a student evaluation into a clip ping pong of stickomythia. Did this course fulfill your expectations? 500%. What did you like best about this course? Paul, exclamation point. What did you like least about this course? Certain students. Can you suggest ways to make the course better? More Paul. Any other comments? 500% Paul. So that's just a little tour of Paul as a teacher here at the New School. I'll end by reading a favorite poem by Paul that I encountered last spring when we both turned up in a curious anthology presented to Bob Dylan on his 70th birthday. 70 years, 70 poets, 70 poems, and this was Paul's characteristically wily contribution. Back Bay, circa 1966. It was that second-floor apartment, corner of Commonwealth and Mass Ave. The cops burst in, guns drawn. They leapt in through doorways, landing with legs spread, gun barrels and eyes synchronized, scanning the rooms. But it was the wrong place, a bum steer. The game, even so, Fortin, and whatever his name was, refused to stop or acknowledge them. The game was too close to call. They had shoved the furniture aside, taken the pictures off the wall, converted the living room into a handball court. In shorts, sneakers, headbands, sweating like mad, they played with a jaw-clenching intensity that drew the cops over. One looked at me, jutted his chin, jerked his thumb towards the game. I answered him with a shrug, showed him my hands, palm up, explanationless. They holstered their pistols and watched as serves were met with a dive, a leap, a floor-slamming lunge that made the tone arm bounce across rainy day women. It was ferocious, electrifying. Swipe, snatch, skid, slap, whizzing arms and volleys, flying sweat, muttered curses. The cops were as captivated as I was. The first day any of us had seen the game played without a ball. No ball, handball. And yet not one point, not one out-of-bounds call was disputed. And when Fortin finally put the game away, punched in a shot that left what's-his-name looking dumb and deflated, he walked over dripping, breathless, gave the invisible ball one more sharp bounce off the floor, and to welcome any post-game commentary, greeted the cops with a triumphant, aw shucks, sportsman-like smile. But the cops were already backing out into the hallway. The last one with his hands held chest high, a careful pushing off motion, a way of saying, let's just, let's just let's. That was Paul Violi, too. And the next reader is Michael Quattrone.
I'm Michael Quattrone. I'm going to read Extenuating Circumstances. I don't know how fast I was going, but even so, that's still an intriguing question, officer, and deserves a thoughtful response. With the radio unfurling Beethoven's Ode to Joy, you might consider anything under 80 sacrilege, particularly on a parkway as lovely as the one you're fortunate enough to patrol, and patrol so diligently. A loveliness that, if observed at an appropriate rate of speed, affords the kind of pleasure which is in itself a reminder of how civilization depends on an assurance of order and measure, and the devotion of someone like you to help maintain it. Yes, man the measurer, the incorrigible measurer, and admirably precise measurements they are, not, of course, as an end in themselves, but, lest we forget, as a means to propel us into the immeasurable, where it would be anybody's guess how fast the west wind was blowing when it strummed a rainbow and gave birth to Eros. Never forget that a parkway is a work of art, and the faster one goes, the greater the tribute to its power of inspiration. A lyrical propulsion that approaches the spiritual and tempts, demands the more intrepid of us to take it from there. That sense of the illimitable, when we feel we are more the glory than the jest or riddle of the world. That's what kicked in, albeit briefly, as I approached the Croton Reservoir Bridge. And on a night like this, starlight reignited above a snowfall's last flurry, cockeyed headlights scanning the girders overhead, eggshell snow crust flying off the hood, hatching me on the wing, like a song breaking through prose, the kind I usually sing through my nose. So much to love, a bit less to scorn. What have I done? To what end was I born? To teach and delight, delight or offend. Luck's been no lady, truth a sneaky friend. Got the heater on full blast, window jammed down. Odometer busted, speedometer dead wrong. Can't tell how fast I'm going. Don't care how far I've gone. Thank you.
I am Amy Lawless. Excess. To see you laugh and smile so free and joyful, to look across the table into your glad eyes and realize how long it's been since I've seen you like this and how it makes me happy in a way nothing else can. I want to risk raising a glass to you before we even lift our forks, not out of some mindless urge, some rampant intimacy a boob succumbs to, jumping out of his seat and applauding a concert before it ends, but as your sensitive accompanist, or better yet, as an unintrusive though starved gnat that hovers over a banquet, that fog-bound gnat who in a sunburst of an invitation alights on the potlatch, Cristoforo Mezzabugo orchestrated for Polito d'Este, and follows the guests as they arrive after a recital, led by dancers across the garden under swags of flowers strung from tree to tree, where more musicians begin to play beneath a festooned canopy, all eyes aglitter amid glittering wine bottles and silverware on bright white linen. Tables decorated with flowers, salt cellars, gold and silver finger bowls of scented water, and 15 great gilded sugar sculptures of Venus, Bacchus, and a plump Cupid. They devour the antipasti, asparagus salad, anchovies, herbs, and marzipan biscuits, not knowing 18 courses await them, each consisting of 7 different dishes, each announced by a different entertainment, the first by 3 trombones, its centerpiece, a huge boiled sturgeon with garlic and red sauce, the second, pike strewn with blue borage flowers and tench dressed a la Francaise, by the lighter sounds of flute and oboe. The music nearly overwhelms the 5th course when clowns tumble around tables, followed by singers and jaunty dancers. During the 9th course, 1,000 oysters served with plates of oranges and pears. Pipers start to play what many mistake for the finale until squires relay the tables with new centerpieces, 15 nude figures, male and female, made of black biscuit flavored with honey and sesame. Their gilded heads garlanded with bay leaves, their modesty guarded with wild flowers. This time, the salads are served with caviar to the sound of a bassoon, and as a lutist sings madrigals, cuttlefish arrives, and fried squid, crawfish, and macaroni, while singers dressed as peasants dip and sway, pretending to scythe the garden grass and bring the season to a bounteous end. After the 17th course, broad beans, raw artichokes, parmesan, cherries, sweetmeats, squires again relay the tables, bringing perfumed toothpicks and more scented water. Along with the final course, candied fruits and cakes, candied lettuce and cucumbers, the orchestra assembles and all the singers. Servants carry in a great silver bowl brimming with bracelets, earrings, rings, necklaces, and fragrant gloves, gifts that the Duke himself is supposed to bestow as he bids his guests goodbye, but instead he jumps up in the middle of a madrigal and demands an encore. The conductor exuberantly complies, and the musicians pick up the tempo with an urgency I can't help but liken to a horde of insatiable gnats that from out of nowhere plunges onto the campsite in the dunes, where a famished James John Audubon, after a day of trudging through the marshland, searching for curlew, on the Carolina banks, hunkers over firelight and plops fish, oysters, and beefsteak onto the embers. He travels light in the wild, packs no fork or plate, so snatches his food bare-handed from coals and juggles the meat scorched and rare until it's not too hot to hold. Neither does he bother to carry salt. A sprinkle, a fistful of gunpowder makes the steak savory enough for him. He stumbles to the shore to scrub the grease, charcoal and powder off his blackened face and hands. Then gnats, vanishing as stars, begin to sparkle and swarm, drops back on the sand, weary, though inexpressibly happy, sprawled beneath a plenitude that he begins to hum and play along with, echoing what, after years of searching, he first heard only hours before when a few curlew flew overhead. Then dozens, then hundreds and thousands more. a continuous flow whose silence, not a note, not a cry, perplexed him until he felt, as much as he heard it, the upsurge, his eskyment, and soft and low, a whir of wings beyond number. But come to think of it, if I did raise my glass now, would I risk sounding like Audubon? Poor Audubon. Later on in his life, happy but mindless in his early dementia, maybe it was all that gunpowder, seated all day in his dining room, stuck in the continual present, the memory of each meal erased as soon as he finishes eating it. So he rings his little bell again for another to be brought to the table, 8, 9, 10 dinners a day, consisting of various meats, mostly pork and potatoes, boiled vegetables, duck, sometimes stewed eels with anchovies, seasoned with salt and pepper, sage and onion, served with nutmeg and juice of half of a. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Ron Padgett, and I'm jumping the line here. I'm going to read a short poem, but first I was earlier tonight thinking about Paul and thinking about 30 years ago or so, he and I were in Philadelphia to give a reading together. And after the reading, we were put up, much to our surprise, in the home of some wealthy suburbanite, and who put us up together in the same bedroom, which I think must have belonged to their teenage daughter, because it was all pink and frilly, and it's really quite amazing. But so I remember sitting up, it got rather late, and I was sitting up in bed reading, and for some reason I looked up, and Paul was getting ready for bed, and he took his shirt off. And I looked at him, and I said, "Whoa, Paul." And he said, "What?" I said, "What's with the muscles?" Because it turned out, I'd never thought about it, but Paul was an incredibly well-built guy. He had big, broad shoulders and big chest and biceps. He looked like a muscle man. I thought, this guy's a poet, you know. But I did subsequently realize, well, now here's Paul's the complete package. Not only can I admire him and be inspired by him as a poet, but if things get rough in a bar or somewhere, I can hide behind him too. This is a short poem by Paul. I wanted to read his infinitely long poem wonderful piece called Little Testament, but it's too long for tonight. And this is called Written in a Time of Worry and Woe. I stopped and leaned over the footbridge rail. Far below, roaring by the library, the stream plunged through deep winter with the force that follows a spring thaw, reenacting in a short stretch its ever-varied course. I watched it flow clear under clear black ice, churn frothy under gray, tunnel and swirl under snow, pool and spill, then slide over and under overturned stumps and debris. I watched until I thought, February, the apex of the year, and felt so far above the sum of whatever I've known or seen or done that I couldn't care less what I must have lost to feel so cold and free.
I'm Charles North. I'm going to read an early poem which I remember regularly bringing down the house when Paul used to read it. It breaks every rule in the book, and it has in addition, some of the best names ever to appear in a poem. It's called Exacta. And they're off. Babe Wittgenstein takes the lead. It's Babe Wittgenstein, morbid blonde, queasy phantom, Princess Spitz, squeaked aorta, dream helmet, and pigs in moonlight. Princess Spitz coming up fast. It's Babe Wittgenstein, morbid blonde, and Princess Spitz. Babe Wittgenstein has the edge. Here comes Dream Helmet, neck and neck with Queasy Phantom. Pigs in moonlight, losing ground. Princess Spitz nosing out Babe Wittgenstein. They're bunched up on the rail. Queasy Phantom with blinkers on. It's Princess Spitz by a length. Babe Wittgenstein and morbid blonde, nose and nose. Rounding the turn, dream helmet on the outside. Squeaked aorta out of the running. It's Princess Spitz and Morbid Blonde. Babe Wittgenstein losing ground. Pigs in Moonlight breaking sharply. Queasy Phantom takes the turn. It's going to be close. It's Princess Spitz, Morbid Blonde, Babe Wittgenstein, Dream Helmet, Queasy Phantom, Pigs in Moonlight, and Squeaked Aorta trailing the field. A little daylight now between Babe Wittgenstein and Pigs in Moonlight. It's going to be tight. Princess Spitz fighting it out with Morbid Blonde. It's Princess Spitz, it's Morbid Blonde, it's Princess Spitz. Queasy Phantom slowing down. Dream Helmet 2 lengths behind Pigs in Moonlight. They're going into the stretch. Morbid Blonde out in front. Pigs in Moonlight closing fast. Here comes Pigs in Moonlight, sweeping past Princess Spitz, Morbid Blonde, and Pigs in Moonlight neck and neck. Babe Wittgenstein tiring, falling back. It's Morbid Blonde. It's Pigs in Moonlight. It's going to be Pigs in Moonlight. Pigs in Moonlight has the field. Pigs in Moonlight charging through. It's Pigs in Moonlight. Pigs in Moonlight winning by 2 lengths.
Hate following that poem. I'm Amanda Smeltz, and this is Mileage. It's an early poem from In Baltic Circles. Tuesday. Whatever happens to feel good, or peculiarly bad. A formless cluster, something obtained by its own momentum, a star, or perhaps a sexual experience, a piece of paper suspended in the wind. Monday. I want to start something I can't finish. Wander around covering up my tracks so it looks like I'm always beginning. Achievement piles up like garbage. Maybe I'll do something juvenile and terrible, like destroy a piano with an axe. Pages torn from a spiral notebook. Saturday. 2 cats we own. A white one called Moby, and another whose name hasn't been replaced since Martha realized fellatio wasn't a character from Hamlet. Saturday, twice. I'll be constructive. Rent a dozen accordion players and get them lost in a blizzard. Pages torn from a spiral. One day, on the good ship Catatonia, to the Isle of Catatonia. Last night, brandy and moonlight. This afternoon, I grew a pimple. Sunday, I decrease. Monday. Tuesday. Rules. Inserting the bars in your own cage. Pages torn from a spiral and dropping from my hand like a leaf. Thursday. We held hands and strolled out under the stars. With a casual authority, I pointed out various constellations. Orion, the Dippers, Labia Majoris, Labia Minoris, Solar Plexus. The next day, remember lying in the woods on a pile of mulch, bark peeling off a log, revealing worm life. Ridicules, vermiculate scrawl, an arabesque, torn from a spiral, falling like a leaf. Saturday. I'm getting tired, but I'll be gracious. Geronimo died of natural causes in 1909. The state of Vermont, to deter buggery, outlawed the wearing of hip boots in any pasture at night. A cheetah can outrun a greyhound. Saturday, twice. An ending is dawning on me. A grimace has replaced the cowboy's charming smirk. Fatally wounded, his legs buckle, and he falls to the ground, bites the dust, both revolvers still blazing.
Good evening. I'm Jim Periconi, and I'm going to read a poem from Likewise, 1988. All of you know that Paul was an immensely talented poet. I just want to say something briefly before we start. Many of you may not know that he was an immensely talented translator. And this is a poem that is a translation, mostly quite faithful, from Michelangelo's poem called Io sto rinchiuso come la midolla. It's a genuinely despairing poem. However, Paul manages to infuse it with his typical wit and irony and make this despairing poem into something almost Shakespearean. I live here, a shut-in, poor, alone, bottled up like a stale genie. My thoughts can't fly in this dark womb without being snared by 1,000 cobwebs. Giants crap outside my door all night, along with countless others too drunk or too sick to make it home. The sound of them pissing and puking wakes me before the morning light. Cats, carnage, vermin. My doorstep's a cesspool no visitor will bother to cross. My soul has this advantage over my body. It smells better in there than out here. It couldn't escape if it wanted to, one way or the other. My head's clogged with a cold, and I'm constipated. It must want to leave a body so ruptured, wrecked, cracked, and split from hard work. Death's a boarding house where I live on credit. My happiness is my dejection, my rest, my discomfort. When you pray for bad luck, God should give it. You who saw me at the Feast of the Mage, I know what I mean, know why my house is a stable among the palaces of the rich. Love's flame leaves me, my heart cold. A great shit would drive out a little care, this soul of mine that's had its wings clipped. My voice sounds like a hornet trapped in a jar. My gallstones rattle. My eyes look like blue dust ground in a black bowl. My teeth are as loose as a keyboard. My face is the shape of fear itself. I'm a wind-shaken scarecrow. A spider spins a web in one ear while a cricket chirps all night in the other. Awake or not, I sound like I'm snoring. Love, the muse, the flowery grottos, all that I've drawn and scribbled adorns the walls of outhouses, whorehouses, and bars. What use are all the puppets I've made? I feel like someone who swum the ocean only to drown in the muck offshore. Art and fame have left me poor and old, not free. If I don't die first, things will just get worse.
Hi, my name is Bill Zavatsky, and I was very lucky in the late 70s, early 80s to publish 2 books by Paul, one called Harmattan and the other one called Splurge. And I'm going to read from Splurge a poem called Melodrama for Anne. There it is again, the future, and it looks the same as the last time I saw it. I recognize everything. I stole the chandeliers myself in broad daylight. And there's the horizon, an actual line after all, a rack line. And you, on the other side, so content, naked in the sun-stirred air, lolling on the hood of a new white car. A stone turns into a peach as soon as you bite it. Windfall silence, the clouds stampede. I like the garish car, too. And the ornament, the silver swan, looks like it just flew out of you, your heart's emblem, released, raising its wings into the great and puzzling distances that brighten my sleep. Some physicists agree that tachydons, if they do indeed exist, travel only faster than the speed of light, and aren't good for much else. Except for someone like me to envy now and then, thinking I might eventually follow them, as I kill time driving around, not knowing where I'm going, not lost either, watching the city expand weary, dazed, in love with the night. A job here and there, a dinner box of Kentucky Fried Chicken in my lap, an open container of coffee, and a greasy steering wheel to contend with. Anyway, something like that keeps me going, carries me in a clear globe of exhaustion and pleasure, squinting through raindrop craters and metronomic windshield wipers into the pointless wastes of time. Glad at least to be both here and there, writing to you. The scavengers of the air are already up there, high above the perpetual sirens, wailing to each other as they careen through the canyons and avenues and dive for the bones, bills, and garbage I toss out the window. My dream carved in the windshield, my reflection buried in the ice-coated side view mirror, my verse a true image of my mind, ever in motion, still desiring change. Matches, cigarette packs slide back and forth across the dashboard as the car swerves. Tires hum and moan and sometimes sing to me about the people I love or how tired I am of death, how I wouldn't know what to do without you, how, through the reveries and cold facts of sleeplessness, the red taillights ahead of me look like stars fallen in line, whose destination is the same as mine. Coda. Cheerios in a bowl of water. Somewhere, probably Florida, you yawn and sip cognac out of a polished snail shell. Space moves with a breeze that could lift your hair but not blow out my last match. Blue jay under a streetlight, bones picked clean but wings not missing a feather. There's a moral in there somewhere, kid. The first shadow I saw in starlight was yours, and it was raising a glass with mine. Mosquitoes saw the air to pieces. Ice cubes thaw until clear in the gin. Clarity entering clarity, the way you appear. A silence, a thought in a bright corner. Dogs wheeze outside the door. A firefly cracks in the cat's jaws. Light dissolves on his tongue.
I'm Star Black, and we miss Paul, and my love to Anne. I was honored to photograph a Violi wedding, Paul and Anne's daughter, and it was set on a hill in upstate New York in a beautiful place. Paul was there in the muscle man was in a gray tux, almost overseeing a very happy scene throughout the day, and I was so happy to be there. This is one of Paul's translations of Cecco Angileri's Si fosse foco sonnet. Angileri was a Siena poet who lived between 1260 to 1310. I'm reading it because I remember Paul as being very happy that day, and this is a very saucy sonnet called Sonnet. If I were fire, I'd burn the world away. If I were wind, I'd blow it down. If I were water, I'd let it drown. If I were God, I'd deep six it today. If I were Pope, what would make me gay? To ransack every Christian town. If I were emperor, what would make my day? To see heads roll on the ground. If I were death, I'd run down my father. If I were life, I'd flee from him. As for dear mama, she gets the same. If I were Cecco, and that is my name, I'd take the pretty young girls to screw and leave the ugly old hags to you.
Hi, I'm Mark Statman, and I'm actually a professor here at Lang College, which is part of the new school, and I'm very grateful to David and to Robert and also to Stephanie for putting this all together. I first met Paul not as a person, but through this magazine that Gary Linhart published in 1988 called Transfer, which has a kind of honor roll. I mean, Charles North leads off, and I could read down. But Paul's final poem in it is his poem, King Nasty, which I can't read the whole of because it's way too long, and David's been very clear, keep it short. So I'm just going to read from the end, and the thing that you need to know is that the poem is written from the point of view of a producer who's trying to make a movie and about well, he doesn't know. He's just the kind of idiot, but he's trying to give directions to all these writers. So I'm just going to read the last parts of King Nasty, and apparently, Bill, you did publish this poem at one point, but this was my first introduction to Paul, and I didn't know how to. Every time I read the poem, I for some reason I always give the voice. I don't know why. I always make it a Brooklyn voice. So here we go. So this producer's been like telling these writers what they're supposed to do. So here he goes. Finally, let's skip ahead. The Sun King. It's curtains for the Sun King on the shortest day of the year. And Big Boy, that's the guy who's been guillotining everyone. And Big Boy's sunk. The stress has broken him. He's been haunted by his victims. Now I have to put my glasses on. Oh, there we go. The flesh made word, but now he's sure that Louis is good for the terminal world. But before the king has to give a speech, and I've just got the line, I forgot which it was, whether it was Louis XIV or XVI, who after a battle said, "Has God forgotten all that I have done for him?" I don't know who said it, but use it. Have the king, at his own request, face up, staring high into the glare, so the blade drops down as the sun exploded. It's always been a heavy symbol. The shadow of the blade, his throat slit. Slow motion, and go. Big Boy grabs the head of the hair before it hits the drenched deck and holds it aloft. It starts to spin slowly, and he turns with it, beseeching it, tete-a-tete, his eyes bulging more than the dead heads. The people got more excited, believing him, Big Boy's, displaying for them a tremendous crescendo. Citizens start to scramble onto the scaffold, clamoring to dip their handkerchiefs in the king's blood. Big Boy, still awaiting the word, stomps on their fingers, tries to stomp them without taking his eyes off the king. The crowd bellows and waves money at him, then closes to the edge and demanding a lock of Louis's hair. They want to rip his coat apart, wear strips of it as headbands. Big Boy refuses, yanks the coat away from the assistants with one hand. The crowd begins to jeer him. Thousands in thunderous unison take up the disdainful cry, calling him King Nasty, King Nasty, King Nasty, or King Naughty. He can't concentrate in the tumult. He's lost it. He's missed it, foiled by the bellow and roar of his own name, his new name. The king says something. It's when men try to become angels that they most resemble. But Big Boy loses it, like a drop in the ocean. This has to happen very fast. Absolutely deafening noise that ends in absolute silence, ringing silence, with Big Boy staring deaf and dumb, not knowing what. That's it for today. I've given you plenty to go on. Try to kick it into shape. Maybe put your heads together, okay? Maybe you can find something else for that sentence. I'm loose, you know? Maybe you can come up with a palindrome. Maybe we got a play here. Or convert it into an opera, a musical, or all three. We could run a contest. Instead of that sentence that the heads can sing a jingle. Think about it, casting it away. Ask the sponsors to suggest somebody. Anyway, that's it. Let's have a drink. How do you like your bourbon?
Hi, my name is Mark Bibbins. The first time I heard Paul read, he did this poem, and I haven't looked at a fashion show or a war in quite the same way ever since. It's called House of Xerxes. Here come those splendid Persians. We were expecting fireworks, and here they are. Short bows, long arrows, colorful long-sleeve shirts under iron breastplates. Nice fish scale pattern on those breastplates. Just the right beach touch. Very decky. Quivers dangling under wicker worky shields, a casual touch, that. And those floppy felt caps make it very wearable, very sporty. Huge amounts of gold, a killer look feel, but it still says a day at the shore. Now those bumping, thumping Assyrians, a nice mix here. Bronze helmets or plated headgear, shields, spears, daggers, the iron studs on those wooden clubs, a subtle retro bit. And right on their heels, the Bactrians, a sort of butch and bitch combo. Not tidy, not prim, almost a dare-to-wear outfit. And look at that headgear. Whatever were they thinking? And the bows, cane bows, bringing back that beach scene scream. Somebody's been smitten by Cain. Tromping right along, the Saki, Scythians with a scowl. Plenty of flounce and pout, but somehow it all spells powerhouse. Stiff, pointed helmets and loose trousers, bows, daggers, battle axes. Just look at these ratty party boys. Itchy and raw, apocalyptic, but functional. Now, who's this? Good grief, are we ready for the Libyans? Not yet. Takes us away for the beach look. But how can you not love them? Now look at these Sarangi. Are we ready for this? Caspian jackets, cane bows. This is the most colorful yet. A lot of lavender, a lot of white and blue. Colorama, glamorama. A little raggedy, a little trashy, yet a narrow silhouette. Narrow, but masculine for sure. Just what are these boys up to? Oh, now how can you not love these madcap Ethiopians? Leopard skins and lion pelts, long, long bows made of palm fronds, stone arrowheads, not iron, mind you, and matching signet rings. Details, details, a must if you want to gain that total look. Spearheads made of gazelle horns, now that is a new twist. And who thought of this? Body paint, half white chalk, half ochre, the all-around mix and match, a big directional indeed. Check out the headgear, a horse's scalp, including ears and mane for crying out loud. The mane a crest, the ears stiff and upright, very jaunty, very focused. Somebody pinch me. Now who's this? Good grief, are we ready for the Libyans? The brocade scaled back, thank God. A big, sulky leather look. It's a bomber jacket feeling. I get a bomber jacket feeling from this. Javelins with burnt tips, daggers, minimal action gear, but spiffy. You don't want to miss this. What a welcome for the Paphlagonian cuties. Marching, tromping right in. Small shields, medium-length spears, javelins, and daggers. Overloaded, you might say, but why in heaven's name not? Get a load of what's been done with the traditional booties. Halfway up the shin, a booty and greave combo. Now, how cute is that? And everyone agrees under those plated helmets, those Paphlagonians have the curliest hair in the world. Here come the Thracians, javelins, bucklets, small daggers, fox-skin caps, colorful tunics, fawn-skin boots, wooden helmets. You just know how great their gorgeous garb makes them feel. And right on their heels, the Pasidae, another wardrobe pick-me-up, with their small shields, 2 spears each, and bronze helmets shaped into the ears and horns of an ox. What a way to say, surprise! A very jaunty crest, red cloth wrapped around their legs, fashionable yet functional, smart but approachable, sporty in a tongue-in-cheek sort of way. You don't want to miss this. Barefoot Sigarthians with lariats. No optionals, nothing but lariats. Now that is new. No fashion fears here. The total look flouncy, loose, and extra large. Turban Cyprians with high greaves. Wood bows, cane arrows, and goatskin capes. A cape you could wear with anything. Felt caps trimmed with feathers, dangling daggers, bill hooks, untreated oxhide vests. something we'd want in our closet. Lion, tiger, fox, and ox, the full idiom. Upbeat and very wearable, a dose of novelty, a dose of frivolity, a definite smash. They are having a good time up there, rough and raw, yet a lot of flash. Lavish, zippy, sleek, where is it all going? An etude for today's world, a dressy, apocalyptic beach look, a high-octane action look, a premium blend of guts and sass and imagination. Feel the frenzy. A big round of applause for the whole spectrum, for a very big directional that can't help but whip it up. Who's able to take it all in? Everyone's breathless. Today we're making history. We're raising Cain.
Hi, I'm Kate Angus. I'll be reading Midnight Shift. I listen to the crickets and hear the machinery at the bottom of the night. They are all made in Hong Kong out of interchangeable parts. They all rise and fall on the same wave, the creaking, changeless sea they made out of sound and the night air. I don't surprise myself anymore. No, a sense of motion, but no advance. No shore in sight other than sleep and the usual lines scribbled on the way. The notes an alchemist hears adrift in the ordinary, with no symbol for the element of surprise. But then, to feel your hand instead, palm up on the bed like a little boat in the dark, with everything calm for an instant before, out of nowhere, all of you lands on me with a great laugh, a splash of hair. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Paul Auster, and I'm going to read a one-page poem by Paul, which is published in Splurge, the book that Bill published in 1981. I've just lost my place. Here we go. Cheeseburger Serenade with a side of French. Another glacier passed by last night, scraped the paint off the side of the house, and knocked over the garbage cans. I write about it now with a beautiful new pen, a gift, a slim steel gray Astropoint that came with a lifetime guarantee. The glacier was new too. The ice was clear as day, and inside it were a lot of familiar people. I didn't know I disliked so many people. But there they were, fingers splayed, eyes wide open, tongues stuck to the ice, all the blithering sops and penny-sucking nits and flunks and rank phonies, the backfiring wimps who used to wander around like midgets in a pool hall, the cheap chiselers who slid along like snails on their own slime. I should tell you more, aside, il allait au nord. I should tell you in glorious Latin. I should commission the rug weavers of Tashkent to spend the next decade illustrating the scene with silk and spun gold. But I am ashamed of my joy. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Patricia Carlin. Paul wrote so much so well, but often in very long poems and sequences that he was so good at. But I think the short poem I picked is just going to distill the sly wit and the playfulness and that inclusive worldliness that made his company and his poems such a pleasure. At the tomb of the improperly trained bombardier. This is the saddest work I have ever seen. A tremendous concrete piano, its maker unknown. Yet, oh, soul of man, unutterable sorrow, impenetrable silence, the great echo. The poems framed in the corridor are by Maginot. They are thick, the lines impenetrable, true vers Maginot, and visitors are advised to simply go around them.
This is a poem from Overnight, Paul's 2007 book published by Hanging Loose Press. It's called Counterman. What'll it be? Roast beef on rye with tomato and mayo. What do you want on it? A swipe of mayo, pepper but no salt. You got it. Roast beef on rye. You want lettuce on that? No, just tomato and mayo. Tomato and mayo, you got it. Salt and pepper? No salt, just a little pepper. You got it. No salt. You want tomato? Yes, tomato. No lettuce. No lettuce, you got it. No salt, right? Right. No salt. You got it. Pickle? No pickle. Just tomato and mayo and pepper. Pepper. Yes, a little pepper. Right, a little pepper. No pickle. Right, no pickle. You got it. Next. Roast beef on whole wheat, please, with lettuce, mayonnaise, and a center slice of beefsteak tomato, the lettuce splayed, if you will, in a Beaux-Arts derivative of classical acanthus, and the roast beef thinly sliced, folded in a multifoil arrangement that eschews Brigdonian pretensions or any idea of divine geometric projection, for that matter, but simply provides a setting for the tomato to form a medallion with a dab of mayonnaise as a fleuron. And as eclectic as this may sound, if the mayonnaise can also be applied along the crust in a Vitruvian scroll and as a festoon below the medallion, that would be swell. You mean like in the Cathedral Saint-Pierre in Geneva? Yes, but the swag more like the one below the rosette at the Royal Palace in Amsterdam. You got it. Next.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Paterick, and I'm honored to read the poem The Sota Season. In Middle English, that means the sweet season, or we might call it spring. Paul originally published this poem with the title Sonnet for the Earl of Surrey, and in the early 1500s in England, the Earl wrote a beautiful sonnet called Description for Spring, which lists all the beautiful things about that season, and with a twist at the final line, he writes, "And yet my sorrow springs." So fast forward a few hundred years, and Paul Violi writes this homage to that poem, The Sota Season. The golfer smiles in his polo shirt. The little man has beaten the bully. The housewife is using a new detergent, and the Californian squints behind his sunglasses. The man in the diner likes his new bow tie, and so does the doctor who saved the injured cheerleader. The detective uses hair tonic. The stout nurse is immaculate. The waitress wants to date the truck driver. The grocer slices a pound of bologna. The reporter asks him how it feels. The teacher wears a wild shirt. The coach tells the youngster to shape up or ship out. The old lady asks him the time. The woman in curlers orders a hamburger, and yet I want to jump for joy.
I'm George Green. This poem is called Finish These Sentences. The qualities I look for in a subordinate are a situation in which humor might be most unwelcome is, after considering which is better, to be wealthy or wise, my greatest sense of personal fulfillment depends on, it's one thing to champion a sticky empiricism, but it's another altogether different thing to I think of myself as a caring professional who, as the days and nights tumble by like woozy pandas trying to achieve a position conducive to procreation, she had an accent that turned eyes to ice, heart to hard, and transubstantiation to... From the bloody throats of those dull-colored birds that scream at the sun. As a patch of grass and wildflowers where lovers lay begins to revive, so too my mind, once oppressed by joy, in that one moment when they begin to flap frantically in their doom dark, the great books I fling off a high balcony almost... A complete individual is one who... Now there are hands, lovely hands that have played rare instruments in the dark and thrown many a burning basket into the wind. And there are eyes. I like to think my superiors value my ability to... It's easy for me the first thing in the morning to scoff at questions like how many angels can dance on a pinhead. But such figments, especially when immersed in paradox, oxymora, and the like, don't seem so frivolous when we recollect the most intense and memorable experiences of our lives, experiences that in one moment produce a state of devastating superflux, of many simultaneous, powerful, and distinct, if not contradictory feelings, that when captured in words not only allow the closest thing to prayer that the faithless can rely on for solace, but also remind us how figurative speech provides a refined atavistic satisfaction, especially evident in the way deeply imagined metaphor by enlivening objects reawakens the residual susceptibility of the primitive, superstitious mind to fetishism and... Thank you.
Hi, I'm Helen Schulman. I'm also going to be reading from Overnight. The poem is called Stanza. The moss is withered, the gardens are lost. The noon air fades to a sallow haze. The lakes lie low under pollen and dust. The fields look crushed, as though smothered by floods. The lawns are dead. The woods are still. The stream bed dry. And like a great bell cast from summer's weight and solitudes, thunder rocks a cloudless sky. Thank you.
My name is Matt Hart. I'll be reading Public Works from In Baltic Circles. Swinburne pulls up to the light with 35 screeching yellow cabs. They rev their engines, the light turns red, they sound their horns, and off they go. Tally-ho, yells Swinburne, tally-ho. Monet crosses the George Washington Bridge without thinking about our first president's dentures. He could care less. He drives slowly up the Palisades. A flock of cabs passed him a long time ago. It's 11:63 a.m., and he could care less. It's a warm spring day, and the bugs splatter like snowflakes against his windshield. Soon it is covered with the multicolored splotches. He stops for gas. When the attendant begins to clean the windshield, Monet can do one of two things. He either, "Hi, I'm Paul Violi, and I'd like a word with you about Bic pens. I've written some swell poems with Bic pens, and so has my wife, Anne. I expect our child will really like Bic pens, too. You know how ordinary pens sometimes botch things up and give you a glimpse of things to come, like, well, when I'm old and getting a bit senile, I suppose my mind, like yours, neighbor, will skip a word here and there, scratch a mere impression of what should have been a fine thought on the page, and, in a manner of speaking, just plain run out of ink. But there's no reason your pen has to falter like that, and you can bet Bic pens never will. So take my advice. Do yourself a favor and buy a Bic pen today. Pick up a couple for the whole family while you're at it and tell them I sent you. It's still a warm spring day, and a man waving a square orange flag diverts Monet into the outer lane. Other men in red vests have placed orange stanchions in the road. Another drives a blue truck at 3 miles per hour. They follow him on foot. spraying white lines and double white lines, yellow lines and broken yellow lines, while 3 men in black boots chop up shiny casks of tar, melt it, and scribble the stuff over the cracks in the pavement. The gray concrete sparkles and its reflection hovers over it like a mirage on the wrong road to Wonderland. The first to eat lunch wipes his hands on a green t-shirt. He steps off the road and examines a tomato and cheese sandwich. I remember a job we did near the shore, parking lot. My brother Harry worked that one. So did my cousin and my nephew. We laid down about an acre of asphalt near the beach, and I used to take my daughter there at odd hours for driving lessons. I explained to her how we had put down a long white line and then angling into that one a lot of short slanted ones. But she said it looked like the skeleton of a fish. I couldn't teach her anything. She lives in the city now. I think she's married. But in the summer, it's packed on Sundays, and let me tell you something. When I see all the spaces filled and the cars glittering like a fish on its side in the sunlight, I want to tell you, it's no accident. I'm glad my brother convinced me to take this job. It ain't all politics. The rest of the men unpack their lunches. Some exchange sandwiches. Some of them drink orange soda. Others guzzle grape juice or beer. The second crew has finished shoveling asphalt off the back of the truck. The paint is still drying. All the holes in the road are now bumps. Thanks.
Mark Hillringhouse. I'm going to read also from Overnight. It's the opening poem. It's called Appeal to the Grammarians. We, the naturally hopeful, need a simple sign for the myriad ways we're capsized. We who love precise language need a finer way to convey disappointment and perplexity, for speechlessness and all its inflections, for upended expectations, for every time we're ambushed by trivial or stupefying irony. For pure incredulity, we need the inverted exclamation point. For the drop smile, the limp handshake, for whoever has just unwrapped a dumb gift, or taken the first sip of a flat beer, or felt love or pond ice give way underfoot, we deserve it. We need it for the air pocket, the scratch shot, the child whose ball doesn't bounce back, the flat tire at Journey's outset, the odyssey that ends up in Weehawken. But mainly because I need it, here and now, as I sit outside the Cafe Riggio, staring at my espresso and cannoli, after this middle-aged couple came strolling by, and he suddenly veered and sneezed all over my table, and she said to him, "See, that's why I don't like to eat outside." Thank you.
While listening to the poets, I thought of lines of Yeats. I'm sure I won't be quoting them exactly, but think where a man's glory begins and ends and say, my glory was I had such friends. We're going to have a brief intermission of about 15 minutes and then more wonderful poems by Paul Violi. Well, our first reader for the second half of our reading is Billy Collins.
Thank you. I'm glad that so many people have come to this and so many people have stayed after the intermission. That's a real sign of faith and interest. Paul's musculature has been referred to a number of times, and while I've never seen Paul stripped to the waist, I must say, I will say that Paul is the only poet I've ever met that I would want anywhere near my lifeboat. No, I'm going to change the program. I was supposed to read 2 poems. I think it's silly because it's such a long program. And then I'm not going to read the poems I was supposed to read because in being here with everyone, I just, with Anne and Paul's son and other people, there's a poem that I really want to read, and it's a sort of mock tour of Paul's and Anne's house where I've spent many a fun and blurry evening. And it's called At the Cottage of Mr. Violi. The mailbox, painted dark blue, sits atop a tilted cedar post. It has a little red flag on one side that is altogether remarkable. The Toyota in the driveway is very old and is said to have come from Japan. There is in the hallway an immense dog food bowl. It is made of iridescent pink plastic. It is, as I have said, immense, and it is hideous. In the kitchenette, there is a statuette of Ceres, goddess of Wheaties. The dishwasher is a Kenmore and altogether worthy of praise. In the foyer, an oversized painting of a pork chop provides visitors many opportunities for conversation. In the servants' quarters, there are many impressive works that stress the imminence of death and the probability of hellfire. Placed on the broad maplewood table beside bottles of cognac, there is a recording device with a silver megaphone into which natives are often invited to shout the oral histories of their people. We whose hearts have been gripped by life scoff at the idea of art as mere ornamentation. So they seem to proclaim the 3 statues that adorn the neighbor's lawn, plaster deer with real bullet holes in them. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elaine Equi. I am going to read 2 poems, but they're quite short. This is called Acknowledgements. A month of twilights, lag light, fritter dusk, withered plants, soggy bulbs, stubble, the garden in February. Mold and tendrils, colorless scribbles dangling from a ripped back carpet of matted leaves. Fresh hole in the frozen ground that looks like it was made by a pickaxe, a fang. Smeared dirt and frost, diamond slime. Paradise, a child's notion. Paradise painted one stroke, one phrase, one glimpse at a time. Whatever a lightning flare reveals of it. Blunderblink, an invitation. Mr. and Mrs. Dwindle, request. Demand, the pleasure of your company. Your antics, your fervor, your moodiness, your stolid, numbing, small-time solemnity, your contempt, your pig-headed pride, your carelessness, your squalling self. And the next poem is called Poem, and it's after Gozano. I confess I had to Google. Gozano is a Italian poet. He's Guido Gozano from the late 19th century, early 20th, and part of the Decadent School. Poem. How strange to wake between everything and nothing and be able to make something known as a Paul Violi poem. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lizzie McDaniel, and this is Voice from Splurge. A leopard follows music through smoke. My mind contains questions only your voice will waken, not from sleep, but from a leisure that floats like sleep to those same islands I told you about where horses and leopards dream with their eyes open, and birds fly too fast to be identified. A city of clouds above the city, green lightning or snow falling through a fog that tastes like the ash of some star. These memories your voice spins out of air and water often leave me mute as glass that once was a mirror. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Alex Crowley, and I'm going to read a narrative drift. Drunk or sober, he was a grouch, his face tense and tired from biting hard on nothing. He got up to go to work as usual at 4 a.m. and dropped dead instead. His own kids, neighbors agreed, had caused him too much aggravation. And since she'd had it so rough all along, they made no snide comments when the widow bought a new car 3 weeks later, got her hair styled, and started frequenting the airport bar. When she moved out, her 3 sons, part-time jailbirds since high school, got worse. They stole, they brawled, they wrecked bars, they sandbagged cops, they sold pills to children. If they came home at the same time, they'd fight each other, upstairs, downstairs, outside, swinging boards and garbage can lids until someone called the cops, who would find them passed out on top of their battered cars or bleeding and sobbing on the porch. One would come home alone at times and, no matter how late, turn up the radio, then smash furniture and punch in walls. Sometimes they all left for days. The dog, a magnificent shepherd, left chained to the porch or locked inside to whine and bark incessantly. No one else wanted to get near him, feed him, or let him run. He was a biter. With the house sold, the sons didn't know what to do with themselves or the dog. They shot the dog. His name was Lucky. Attempted to clean up the yard for the new owner. It didn't so much move as drift away from the place. The neighbors who then quietly walked through the rooms like packs of intimidated tourists nodded and pointed at the damage. They guessed which son had written on the bedroom walls, the molding, ceiling, and sills, one word over and over in such tiny, precise letters, H-E-L-P. It looked, as one whispered, really weird, like little flies almost. One night, months later, when the house was fixed up but still unoccupied, a girl noticed the flames and called the firehouse. The inside was ruined, but not the roof, not all the exterior, the cedar lapstrake. Next morning, the disheartened owner, who had renovated it himself, picked his melted power tools out of the soaked rubble, while detectives and insurance agents gave him the lowdown. They knew who did it. They couldn't prove it. A work crew ripped down the walls and tore out the window frames and doors, shoveling debris into a truck bin. Charred studs and joists stood exposed, the rooms reduced to cages. Then, to eradicate the stench, the interior was sprayed and sealed with aluminum paint, $24.95 a gallon. The house has stayed that way a while, above the snow, a clear view through its gray and silver rooms to the empty woods below, perched like a wreck that sank for miles, only to land on a high peak, miles above the seafloor. Morning light will sometimes dredge up and carry off another loose question or fact from a story that felt all the more true since it never ended, just stopped. Now there's always less of it to tell. The aluminum paint has kept its sheen, looks as fresh in places as the day when, fitted with goggles, helmet, boots, and baggy canvas suit, dragging a compressor hose behind him, one man lumbered around a few hours and emerged, dripping silver but exhausted, a diver who has to confirm the obvious and never finds a new way to do it. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Allie Power, and I'm going to be reading Dry Spells from Splurge. You have a scar on your left knee. You are not a rich man, but you are not an unlucky man, for the gods ignore you. Friday and Saturday are your lucky days. You have crossed oceans many times. You have 2 children. One sings in his sleep. Some people have done you great favors. You will not have a long life, but an exciting and sloppy one. Now is the proper time to attend to home duties and not neglect your romantic partner. Avoid excessive respect for old people and symmetry. Your favorite gems are sapphires. Sometimes you are too kind to people, and you know this, and they know this, and the sky is wonderful. You wish you could play the flute. You know hunger, you know pleasure, resentment, fascinating and frightening passions, furled sails and unfortunate winds. Occasionally you enjoy manual labor. Otherwise, you are a prince of indolence. You live in a house with large windows. Birds fly into the windows. Whack, whack. All day long, whack, whack, whack. Your wife thinks you're loco. You need another language. You do not treat machines in a responsible manner. You just celebrated an anniversary. You and everybody else can hear better in the dark. You will not have kidney trouble, stomach trouble, or liver problems. Before Americans' color preference for most major appliances changes from avocado to harvest gold, you will have learned to seek harmony and trust. Avoid burdening yourself with fruitless endeavors. Antarctica awaits your first visit. Your notions of an afterlife are too conventional. You abhor nothing more than a vitiating compromise. Remember what the ancients said, life is more than a conversation between the sea and the air. You have a deep sense of the way propriety and absurdity complement each other. You have prayed for others but merely wept for yourself. Red and gray are your favorite colors. Soon you will be on the tingling verge of a fearful change. Like a clean beast who longs for wind and space, you approach a time of reckoning where the lightning flares while astronomers and poets exchange lies and jokes. Be wary of still waters and smokeless fires, for they will always be dangerous to you. Your eyes will feel like they're changing color when you look back. Idleness, intrigue, a snowless winter behind you. Snow that would have turned blue in the shade. Thanks.
Good evening. I'm Dorothy Friedman August. I met Paul Violi for the first time at the St. Mark's Poetry Project in the late 70s. Ann Waldman had come to John Ashbery's workshop at Brooklyn College and said, you should go to the project. So I went, and I met Paul, and he was really wonderful. The poem I'm going to read is from Overnight, and it's from Overnight. In Klebnikov's aviary. Oh, you cacklers, cackle away. Oh, cacklers and cacklets, cackle, cackle, cackle. Arise, O ridicules, O righteous cacklings, snicker and snigger, cackle and gloat, cackle ladies and cackle gents, cackling, cackle offenously, oh, my cackly. Greet the moon, oh, you cacklers and cackletters. Welcome, chuckleheads. Welcome to cackledom. Oh, you cacklishly contagious cacklings, splattering cachinations, cackle every which way. Cease not, oh, noontime cacklets and cacklers. Cackle away. Cackle away, all ye cacklers, oh, cacklings and cacklets, cackle away. Thank you.
I'm Michael Scavo. I'll be reading a poem from Paul's book In Baltic Circles called Important Repercussions. Well, it's over now. I'm exhausted but gratified. I'd like to thank you for all your support. I'm sure you know what I mean when I say that. You've been a great help. My heartfelt regards and appreciation. Together, and this isn't the first time I've said so, I thought we were a Renaissance ideal made manifest, a multitude in unity. I think it worked. More than that, it's been an unqualified success. Nobody, least of all myself, knew what to expect at first. But now we do know, and this alone has touched us all. Those of you who are with me from the beginning remember the night we first talked about it and the storm that we greeted as a propitious accompaniment to our conversation. Thunder shaking the roof and the aluminum drains, lights flickering on and off like black lightning, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. We counted aloud the seconds between the lightning and the thunder, the white cat leaping crazily out of the tall grass each time the lightning flared, leaping against the picture window, sliding down in a wet smear as we toasted the success of our new venture, and, as in any undertaking of epic proportions, invited the gods to join us. By the next morning, only an undaunted few were still committed. Brass doorknobs in the gray day, the supplicatory posture of leaves beneath the trees from which they fell, azaleas and dogwoods surrounded by the petals the rain had shaken off them during the night. I'm sure you remember having found me, just where I had been when you retired for the evening, in the hammock slung with so many cobwebs between the cherry trees, the sky suffused with a lambent pessimism that hadn't evaded me, my work, or the wine that remained in my glass. The night before, I had been a custodian in the arsenal of silence, but now I was the supervisor. The starkness of those trees, the damp bark scaffolds upon which the harbingers of our great idea entertained us, busily transforming the invisible into the visible and back again. Two skies dueling for the day, gray and white, as we refilled our glasses and made our plans. You recall those early attempts, troublesome but promising, a false but heartening sense of accomplishment, as the odometer, turning from 9,999, registered the first 10,000 miles. And the unforeseen problems when we did succeed. The increasing scope of our visions inhibited the simplest acts, an excessive tolerance and comprehension that enfeebled us with passivity, emptiness having no shore in our minds. Many days I'm sure you'll never forget. No work done, malignant stillness, radios foolishly left on with the hope that the sound of the music would have some effect on the air we breathed. Observations snuffed, vexations, the ineffable thoughts that hovered near us and then fled at the approach of a description. And yet we persevered, kept climbing into the scandent clouds, though knowing, when we turned and looked back, that language had failed us. Just the rocky slope behind us, only a suffix or a prefix protruding from a stump or boulder, an ism or a shun scurrying for cover. And yet we persevered, restoring each other's confidence when it failed, slapping each other on the back, forestalling that wish to float out to the morning sea on a bare mattress. Taste of a stale infinitude, staring through the hours, the vicissitudes, a blanket of pins, a blanket of birds. I couldn't have done it without you. Lying down at dusk, casting the shadows adrift, the slow blur of a moment ago. Reminding ourselves to blink once in a while, blink with diurnal vastness. None of us would be here now if it weren't for the mutual encouragement that sustained us through the most hazardous times. I'm sure I speak for all of you when I say that. We'll never forget some of the places we visited, wondering what we were doing there, talking to the fishermen as they reeled in their question marks from the other side of the rain, or waking up only to see the swans glide away with our best thoughts tucked under their wings. I don't have to remind you of these things again, although there are few besides us who can share stories such as these. But we did it, and this should make us proud. Maybe no one knows about it but us, but 100,000 tons of stardust falls on the earth every day, and how many people know that? What we did is significant, and may well prove to be a milestone, a hallmark of human aspirations. Yes, it might someday be of interest to an archaeologist digging around this, our present civilization, inspecting the shards of a vociferous but deaf people, and compare them to trees, smothered in their own fallen leaves, while looking on what we have done as an achievement of major proportions. Thank you.
So my son took 4 classes with Paul Violi, and he kept saying, Paul is so much better than you, Dad. He's a really wonderful teacher. I said, well, I'm pretty good. I touched him, and he said, no, he's really good. I said to Paul, my son really thinks you're amazing. He said, he's a wonderful boy. I'm just going to read parts of a great poem, this curious builder, and it has many different kinds of tones, so I'm only giving you 1 or 2 of this. I'll start, as everybody does, with something a little funny. Dear reader, since the reign of Bogus won, dear wordsmith, we are off to hunt truth and rabbits, so saddle your ox. We'll take the shortcut again through swamp and paradox. To whom it may concern, it is with great regret that we inform you, dear chump, you will undoubtedly want to be there when gullibility and greed renew their vows. Beloved patron, it is with a heavy head and shriven heart that I take pen in hand. Dear applicant, the subject may appear remote at first, but creative freedom versus social responsibility is the question we wish to explore with you today. Dear parent, was it mere pedantry to reject those ransom notes for your loved ones because of the grammatical errors they contained? Or were higher principles? Dear investor, by the time you read this letter, I will be gone. I have run away. My plan to invest your savings in the manufacture of styrofoam coffins was, I admit, a sham. And the implant that would allow the common man to convert his big toenail into a television screen. Dear finalist, due to an error that we expect you to find as difficult to understand as it is for us to explain, our previous notification designating you as a winner few more. Dear contestant, congratulations. Your chance to win the dream house of a lifetime, to live on the edge of rampant transformation, is at your fingertips. Just pick up your pen. Dearest occupant, this building has been condemned. Stop. Your constant delays leave us no alternative. Stop. Vital services will be terminated. Stop. To facilitate your immediate departure, we advise you to avail yourself of the next. He ends this poem just by quoting, and I think it's heartbreaking, he ends it with a Samuel Davies poem, a collage, perhaps. He just suddenly does it. To the reader, behold once more with serious labor here, have I refurnished out this little frame, repaired some parts defective here and there, and passages new added to the same, some rooms enlarged, made some less than they were, like to the curious builder who this year pulls down and alters what he did the last, as if the thing in doing were more dear than being done, and nothing likes that's past. For that we ever make the latter day, the scholar of the former, and we find something is still amiss that must delay our business and leave work for us behind as if there were no Sabbath of the mind. And howsoever be it well or ill, what I have done, it is mine own. I may do whatsoever therewithal I will. I may pull down, raise, and re-edify. It is the building of my life, the fee of nature, all the inheritance that I shall leave to those which must come after me, and all the care I have is but to see these lodgings of my affection nearly dressed, wherein so many noble friends there be, whose memories with mine must therein rest. Thank you, Paul.
Hi, I'm Daniel Shapiro, and after taking a record number of seminars with Paul, I'm honored to be reading Slump from Splurge. Extension cords intertwine with cobwebs, a wreath of arrogance and laziness. The draft blows through the floorboards. Dust falls from cracks in the ceiling. This small, cluttered room, formerly the tack room in a stable. This poem typed on an IBM Selectric under a 150-watt GE bulb. Two types of correction fluid applied when needed, liquid paper or Ideal. Both brands look and smell the same, though one contains harmful vapors and should be kept hidden from children. Now I will tell you what an honest man I am. The last time I felt the magical force of boredom, I stole its heavy wand. I wave it, a prize, from some pinnacle in the sorry recesses of my mind, in a light as cold as my teeth, as dry as the lies of my tongue. For what more can one ask than to have floated like a stone over that barrenness, to claim it just once, all for himself, breathe the stale air, where the earth was lifted away like a stone, and starve his vision in its limitless absence. Know how far above the stink of the supernal the weakest moment can propel him before sending him back unknowably changed to light a cigarette and blow the first puff against the blank page or the whites of your eyes. Now I will tell you all I know of greed and paradise. Cold air replaces the moments in my blood. Clouds leave their skeletons sliding down, my windows like melting frost. An ox keels over, struck by lightning. The flash, warm as a kiss, leaves me standing there in the sweet damp air. I planned to go somewhere I couldn't imagine, but that's not what this white weather is all about. While one obvious world verges on the next, a mist ascends through a peristyle of oaks, and maybe I'm enchanted by a stark and simple thing. Thanks, Paul.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Michael Hecht. This is Index, a great poem. Hudney Sudet, Roman numeral 9, 10, 11, 7, 9, 25, 58, 60, 61, 64. Plates, 5, 10, 15. Childhood, 70, 71. Education, 78, 79, 80. Early relationship with family, 84. Enters academy, honors, 84. Arrest and bewilderment, 85. Formation of spatial theories, 90. Romance of Ardoy, The, 92. Second arrest, 93. Early voyages and life in the Pyrenees, 95. Marriage, 95. Abandons landscape painting, 96. Third arrest, 97. Weakness of character and constancy, 101. First signs of illness, advocation of celibacy, 106, 107. Advocates abolishment of celibacy, 110. Expulsion from Mazar, 110. Collaboration with Ferdinand G, 111. Composes lines beginning, death wouldst that I had died whilst thou wert still a mystery, 117. Consequences of fame, violent rows, professional disputes, 118, 119. Disavows all his early work, 120. Bigamy, scandals, illness, admittance of being easily crazed like snow, 128. Theories of perspective published, 129. Birth of children, also 129. Analysis of important works, Wine Glass with Fingerprints, Nude on a Blue Sofa, The Drunken Fox Trappers, Man Wiping Tongue with Large Towel, Hay Bales Stacked in a Field, Self-Portrait, Self-Portrait with Cat, Self-Portrait with Frozen Mop, Self-Portrait with Belching Duck, 135. Correspondence with Cecco Angolaria, 136. Dispute over attribution of lines, I have as large supply of evil as January has not flowerings, 137. Builds first greenhouse, 139. Falling out with Angolaria, 139. Flees famine, 144. Paints starved cat eating snow, 145. Arrested for selling sacks of wind to gullible peasants, 146. Imprisonment and bewilderment, 147. Disavows all his work, 158. Invents the collar stay, 159. Convalescence with third wife, 162. Complains of a dense and baleful wind blowing the words I write off the page, 165. Meets with Madam T, 170. Departures, moral premonitions. I think I'm about to snow, 176. Disavows all his work, 181. Arrest and pardon, 182. Last days, 183. And last words, 184, 185, 186, 187, 188, 189, 190.
Tony Towle, right? I mean, leaving me in, you're leaving, I didn't mean that, you were leaving me in doubt there. Two short poems. The first is from In Baltic Circles, which makes, he wrote it over 40 years ago. I wanted to say something about that. I don't really think it's said. The In Baltic Circles that's being reprinted after 37 years. You can see in there, it was this first major collection. You can see in there everything that came in the 10 later books. This is called Nicean. Last month, the moon reduced to the inane grin of an old lady who used to sing for the troops. Tonight, I'm in the grass, I suppose, feeling I've always been here, waiting and thinking about what the wind shapes to its mood. Ancient prospects ride the airwaves, the Arctic Sabbaths and clouds from other famous but extinguished secrets. I'm thinking about what the wind shapes to its mood, and you arrive without distracting me. The moon is full of lies. Maybe the water enjoys listening to them. The snow believes them and melts. It is another way of seeing, and it surprises me with your scalp, your thighs, your throat. I've always wanted a map which changes as I follow it. Soon we are gladly lost, your fingernails coolly tracing the confusion. The wind shifts and the sunken galleons have risen to the day, encrusted with coral and shells. No one ever suspected they would, but here they are, and their captains are drunk. It's midnight and the moon is full of praise. The wine is gone and the tropical sky blooms with the parachutes of 1,000 assassins who will effortlessly drown in the sea. It's more recent, from the 1999 fracas. On an Acura Integra. Yes, on an Acura Integra. Please think of this as not merely a piece of writing that anyone would fully appreciate, but as plain and simple words that attempt to arouse whatever appetencies you especially depend upon language to fulfill, that drench you in several levels of meaning at once, rendering my presence superfluous. In other words, welcome this as a poem, not merely a missive I've slowly composed and tucked under your windshield wiper, so that these onlookers who saw me bash in your fender will think I'm jotting down the usual information and go away. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Maggie Wells. This night's been really great, though not over yet. I'm going to read more on the heroic deeds and manner of the worthy Rabelais, Doctor of Medicine. Rabelais, Pantagruel continued, was a marvelous person to see and know, even when he was hungover. If he smiled, it was roses, junkyard roses. If he sneered, it was an ox waking up from a honey pit. If he sighed, it was bygones. If he blinked, you could hear it. If he was angry, it was how to embarrass an idealist. If he was pleased, it was hammers. It was sparks flying off male heads in the twilight. If he was in a good mood, you knew it was the storm's paraffin. If he spit moths. If he was queasy, it was closed for alterations printed on his eyelids. If he was worried, the sky was an erased Tiepolo. If he was complimentary, it was palm readers slapped across the face. If he had a sneezing fit, it was roadside yo-yo. It was the same cloud of flies blown off a dead raccoon again and again by a speeding Chrysler Imperial. If he slept well, it was Aristotle, Aristotle, Aristotle. If he didn't, it was Plumbic odes for breakfast. If he didn't sleep at all, it was Kierkegaard and beans. If he scribbled, it was a pile of rope. If he sketched, it was pleasure seekers at 2 a.m. If he painted, ripples it was on the surface, but Milton and Beethoven, deaf and blind and furious, 3 fathoms below, groping, jabbing, and screaming at each other eternally. If he murmured, it was soil enriched with dragon blood. If he vomited, it was historical. It was Hannibal, pouring boiling vinegar on alpine slopes so his troops wouldn't slip on the ice. If he just belched, it was fiction. And any resemblance to actual persons or places, purely coincidental and gladly welcome. If he was love-struck, it was Leda and the Swan, it was Boss Swan overture, it was wings gulping white and gold, it was fly her into a standstill, it was crucial creatures stirring up realms of trouble. If mere lust, it was Leda and the Duck, your common poker flip-flipping along the muck edge of things. If he was perplexed, it was a crow and its shadow goose stepping over a snowbank. If attentive, it was an upright groundhog. If he twitched and drooled, it was Alemanni stammering into a lambent temple. If he went drinking again, he'd invite his favorite fallacies. If it was ad hominem, it was have one on me and grow real tired of yourself long before you die. If ad misericordiam, could you spare a glass of water? If petitio principici, tequila with an empty bucket on the side, please. If non sequitur, a shot of whiskey with a coffee chaser. If ad buculum, it was let's dribble the bouncer. If he had too much Barolo, it was hey, look at these flesh-colored tattoos. If it was Chardonnay, it was a cool draft from a mine shaft, cool as a flute. If it was Chianti, it was 12-gauge. It was a bat hunt in formal attire. If it was a strong ale, the gods love an intelligent slut. If weak ale, it was starving prisoners waiting for their fingernails and their hair to grow into a snack. If it was rum and tea, it was merry morning melodies. If it was champagne and brandy, it was cheerful stoicism. It was pension gladiators. It was gladiolas, glad to be here, glad to be of help, glad to see you go. And the strange thing was that even if it was well water, he never knew when to shut up. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bob Hershon. I published 5 of Paul's books and acted as, no. He wrote them, I just published. And I acted as his editor on the books, which is one of the easiest jobs in American poetry. He not only could write, he could spell. So as you've heard with that poem Index, Paul was a master at inventing insane forms. There's a rare book catalog. There's the layout of a yacht basin. There's a police blotter, was probably the best known of those. And this, excuse me, I never saw a reading where no poets ever paused to drink water. Make a note of that for posterity. To end this book and also to end the evening, I'll read one of those, and it's called Errata. Page 10, line 7. After sun-drenched, place dash. Line 8. After waded out of the meadow, place comma. 10. After Aphrodite, place closing parentheses. 12. Omit foam-flecked. Add green serge foam-laced with wild carrot. 13. After my black boots dusted with buttercup, add stepped lightly out of the night. Page 11, line 1. After lyric sidewinder, place comma. Line 5, after loved life, add as a thief loves darkness. Line 6, after her body, add Pythagorean flotilla nocturne scramble. 9, after side effects, add slow shadow of the speed demon Hermes. Page 27, line 2, omit pause, P-A-W-S, add pause, P-A-U-S-E, or omit clause, C-L-A-W-S, add clause, C-L-A-U-S-E. Page 29, line 8, omit inappropriate, add sounded worse than slang being carved on the gates of a shrine. 17, after the, omit exclamation point. Page 45, line 3, omit an injury shortened his railroad career. Add, in his last train wreck, speeding through a blizzard one night, he plowed into a herd of sheep. The wool wrapped so tightly around the steel froze the wheels instantly as if the locomotive had slammed into a cliff. He broke both legs and both arms, and then, muttering about a tumultuous void, he retired from the railroad. Line 5, after disappointed, place inverted exclamation point. Page 50, line 26, after a loner amongst the natives, add stood motionless for 19 hours, 25 seconds on July 29th at the Motionless Festival in Indonesia. Line 30, after broken English, place inverted question mark. Line 31, omit difficult, add money-hungry, bug-eyed, sex-starved hog wild. Page 72, line 9, after became patron saint of thieves, add Hermes. 10, after the ancients sucked in the last breath of their expiring friends, add maybe. Line 15, omit rest in peace, omit get lost, omit he never had a clue, add plagiarized epitaph, and I will miss myself.
I believe we have a program that all the participants signed and that we'd like to present to Anne. Do we have such a program? If so, we'll bring it forward and present it as a little memento of the evening. And, well, it'll materialize. In the meantime, I do want to thank everyone who participated this evening, and I want to thank our audience, but most of all, when snowflakes fall, I wish you love. Love of Paul. And perhaps we could have a round of applause for the author of all those wonderful poems that we listened to tonight. That's all, folks.